is up, y'all?
Corn, I don't know, man, if I have seen someone, and I think I said this a while back when he first came on the network, was I don't know if I've seen someone with the drive and passion to make it in the industry like I've seen with you. And
that's my boy, that dude 2020. I like the name.
The drive and fire and passion in some people is not quite there for this type of an industry because it's cutthroat. It's very, up and down roller coaster of emotion. But also, I don't know if I've seen a person, though, who probably has been so appreciative of a chance that they were given. Corn, like I've said, though, man, is, again, you're one of the new guys on this network. And again, I know that you're very appreciative, though, of me kind of giving you the shot here. But
how did you get blocked by LeBron James on Twitter?
I don't know if I've seen so much drive and energy and passion from someone maybe other than me for this industry. And
LeBron is truly a rising star in this industry. He knows his stuff. He's not afraid to go at people, and he's a guy that you want to go to bat for. And I'm so thankful that he's part of our network.
That is right, folks. Nowhere else you would get the honest sports takes, but that one, dude, 2020 here with the MI6 Sports Network in the hometown studios of Austin, Texas, with the honor and privilege of interviewing what you call the 2017 Flex League Champ article writer, my man Steve. How are we doing today?
Hey, man, I'm doing good. 2017. That's a ways away from when I last won it, but it didn't seem like it was that long ago.
Gotta ask you, man, for people that may not know what that is, maybe like myself or others, what would be like the best honest explanation of what that is and how that came into fruition?
So I was not a part of developing the league. The league name came from, I believe, David Gonos, who's been in the industry for quite some time. And Flex League stands for Fantasy League of Experts. It initially was a 12-team league of experts. It's grown to, well, I shouldn't say that. I believe that there may have been 2 or 3 iterations in year one where there was PPR and non-PPR and stuff like that. So it's grown to where we have drafts in DC, New York, etc. I won the PPR championship in 2017, like you said. Got a nice little belt here to commemorate that. But it's a difficult league because you got writers from all over the place. They've been in the industry for quite some time. Jake Seeley runs the leagues, does a great job. You can find him on Twitter. He's with, I believe, the Fan Network.
Awesome, man. It's always like to hear like different stuff, like sports personalities and kind of how they know different things. But gotta ask you though, man, like everybody has like their own story. I'm Steve or I'm Brian. If people that may or may not know who you are or what you're about in this industry, how would you describe yourself as a sports media personality?
So it's always tough to reflect and say something about yourself, right? Humility is really important trait for people to have in my eyes. I guess I would sum it up as, back in 2014, I had my own blog, Full Impact Football, that I was also writing on to just help myself while I was also doing stuff for the Huddle. And I decided to open it up for up-and-coming writers that didn't have a home. And I tried to call it the Pay It Forward Writers Project. And I recruited some people to mentor, people that were trying to get into the industry, and just there were no strings attached. It was to give them a spot that they could, put their articles out to try and get started. So I'd say that, to sum me up, I'm somebody that's all about the community. I think that the fantasy community, the NFL community is fantastic for the most part, right? We all come together whenever there's a need. Chris Wessling passed away, earlier this year. God rest his soul. And the fantasy community, I want to say, raised over the football community raised almost $200,000 for his wife and new child. Scott Fish does some great stuff with Toys for Tots and for the industry with his Scott Fish Bowl. So I want to just give back. So whenever I can help somebody, that's what I'm going to try and do, whether it's giving them the avenue to try and get started or, some advice just that you exchange via DMs and stuff like that.
Definitely, without a doubt, man. I think I wish more people were kind of like that. Some people in the industry is like, oh, it's all about me, 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 and then you kind of have that different perspective of, hey, I know what it's like to get started in the industry. Let me kind of, like, you're up and coming. Let me kind of help you out, kind of show you the ropes. If there were more people like that, I think it'd be definitely a lot more welcoming for sure.
Yeah. So, we all wear multiple hats, right? I've got multiple careers. I've been in management my entire life. It seems like I've been in management since I was 16 years old. And there was a point in time where my arm used to get tired of patting myself on the back. Hey, look, I did a good job. And then you learn as you get experience. And I realized I didn't have to say, look at me, because we did a great job. Put the team out front. Look at what the team did, and people will realize that it's you, right? So it's even kind of like in coaching. Those coaches that they want to stay up in the front in the forelight and look at what I did and look what we're doing with this team versus, hey, these guys did it, not me. So I kind of take that same attitude in the life, and if I'm trying to help somebody, it's not about me. It's what I can do to try and help others, and then hopefully people will look at me and see me in a favorable light. I just want to be able to give more back than what I take if I can.
Definitely, without a doubt, man. Wish more people had that attitude. I think a lot of people, when they come in the industry, they either look at it from the views, the likes of shares, or their money at the zeros. I think having that right mindset is extremely important. If more people had that, Steve, I think a lot more people, we wouldn't see people quitting left and right because people don't understand, I guess, what it really takes. So having someone like you or somebody else that kind of takes them under their wing, kind of show you the ropes is exceptionally important because people don't realize, Steve, regardless if you have the right mindset, this sports industry, articles, videos, it's a lot of fun, but it's a lot more work than I think people truly and genuinely realize.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of work. I mean, there was a lot of nights where I'd be writing till 2 a.m., but you do what you got to do. You want to make deadlines, but it's easier to do it if you have a love for it. But what I think people get caught up in is, I call it the Howard Stern effect. Everybody tries to be Howard Stern, right? Stern made a really nice career being controversial. You don't have to be controversial. You don't have to be contrarian. You've got to be honest, right? Be honest to yourself. Be honest to the people that you want to talk to. So don't try to give them content. Put out there things that you would want to read, things that you're interested in. Don't, I know you're going to talk about this later probably, but my zero quarterback theorem article, I didn't write that because I knew I wanted to write it. I wanted to research what I thought was something that would give me an edge in fantasy. And then I researched it and said, this is interesting. I wish I could read this. So let me write it. So I wrote an article about it, hoping that people would, take to it the way I did and understand, you do a little work for somebody else and you help them out.
Definitely, without a doubt, man. I think people, like you said, like you're writing to 2 a.m. because you love it, Steve. But I feel like a lot of people nowadays finally don't realize. We talk about, oh my gosh, we're talking to these people. I get to talk to guys like you and other people like, wow, look what he's doing. Look what Steve's doing. But mind you, like I said, you're writing till 2 a.m. Like yourself and myself. Yeah. We too hypothetical. This is not to pat yourself on the back. This is what it takes. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of late nights, articles, and reaching out to people. There were probably people when you first started, I was like, yeah, Steve, maybe that could be a little bit of a long shot, but you're like, you know what? I don't care what you think. I'm going to do what I love, despite pretty much what anybody would ever say, either in DMs or to my face.
Yeah, it really, you should not be looking for affirmation from people, right? It's, you do what you want to do, right? Especially if you have the ability to do it. Like there are some people that work for different places. They tell them what they have to write about. And that's fine. But for the most part, you write for yourself and that'll take care of it. Because again, if it's fantasy you're writing about, or if it's the NFL you're writing about, more than likely you love it. So it's something that you're going to have some passion with it, and that should come through in your writing. And I would say this, if you're somebody that's up and coming, don't worry so much about the technical aspect. I remember when I was offered my job, David Dorey reached out to me for the huddle. Hey, I understand that you got a pretty good handle on the IDP stuff and we'd like to add a writer. Can you do it? And my answer was, I don't know anything about writing. Well, no. What do you mean? He's like, don't worry about it. That'll come. And you learn those things. About 6 years ago, he also sent me an email and said, hey, we've got a radio spot that somebody wants us to do, and I can't do it. Would you like to do it? And I'm like, I don't know anything about radio. No, I don't want to do it. Okay, I'll do it because I'm a team player. Well, I wound up being on the radio with a Tampa station, Steve Dumick. He passed away a year or so ago. But I was on the radio with them for 6 years in Tampa every Friday, and I gained a following, and it was fun to do, even though there was a lot of work that went into it. So just because you don't have experience, guess what? That's how you get experience. You just start and you just do it. You're going to make mistakes. Don't let the mistakes define you. Learn from them. And then above all else, don't be an ass. Be kind, be good, treat people the way you would want to be treated, the way you'd want your mom to be treated. If you don't like your mom, then don't treat people that way. I don't know, but just be a good person, and it'll come back to you.
Definitely, without a doubt, man. Now it comes back, I think, to the word humble. Having you getting to talk to people, me talking to certain people, it could be, oh, look at me. But it's like, no, man, well, look at the beginning when you had nobody following your art, or very few people following your articles, had no plays. Doing this for almost 2 years. Like, I'm not saying this and to like, oh, look at myself, pat on the back. I'm saying this, I guess, to people that follow Steve or somebody else, is that it takes a lot of work. So if you all see like the background here, that's what it takes. This is not me, oh, look what I did. It's either recording in a hot car right before COVID started, genius idea, with a bunch of pieces of paper and a bunch of pieces of tape. That's just an extreme example of kind of what it takes to get in the sports industry. You're going to get rejected. I think more people have this notion like, you have 1 or 2 podcasts, oh, I'm going to become the next Colin Coward. But just like you said, be yourself. You're not here to be somebody else. And I think that's where it's kind of gotten me to this day. I keep going back to the word humble, because I remember the beginnings. You remember the beginnings of people, rejections, hundreds of rejections, but let's say 5 of 200 people respond back for an interview. Those are the best 5 interviews. And I think they're the right motives. I think friendships, you got to be honest. Like, why are you interviewing this person? Because if I'm going to interview guys like I'm interviewing like Rob Parker, oh, hey, Rob, 2 years later, can I get an internship? That's not what I'm going to do, because I know my work will speak for itself. Your work has clearly speaks for itself over the years, and you've developed a very good following on social media.
Yeah, I mean, you get that following. I'm sorry, I was going to say, and you learn as you go, right? I remember when I started the Pay It Forward Writers Project, I didn't have that many followers. That's probably what didn't let it blow up the way it would have if I did it today, quite honestly. But you engage with your followers, you engage with other people, and being respectful, that's how you're going to wind up gaining followers.
Definitely, without a doubt, man. I think some people have what you call burnout. But speaking of, like, we talked about your article that you wrote about an article about quarterback value in fantasy football. We know that quarterbacks, it's a fantasy-driven league, and it's a quarterback-friendly league. What really motivated you to write this article, or maybe just kind of explain fantasy football to people?
So for the most part, my fantasy experience, or I should say where I delved, the area I dipped my toe in, is IDP Dynasty and 16 leagues. That's basically all I did for years, and I would occasionally do the expert leagues that were 12 and best ball type stuff. But when I do fantasy, it's 16 team, full IDP. And I remember there was a year where I wanted to draft Carson Palmer in like the 15th round or something like that as my first quarterback. Right. I just was like, I loved everybody before. I'm like, I'm not drafting a quarterback early. No research had been done at this point. And it was the year that he wound up finishing as quarterback 1. He would have been like the 13th quarterback taken in that draft. Somebody drafted him 2 picks in front of me. And I was like, ugh. I wound up going with Jake Delhomme and somebody else. And that season, I won that league. And it made me think about it a little bit. And I started looking. And it was a few years later that I really decided that, after seeing how things played out in my other leagues, I'm going to do some research. And I wound up looking at over, I think, 2,000 fantasy games. And then just to make sure that it wasn't impacted by the one league type, it broke down to 3 different types of leagues. One was a regular Joe league, not experts. The other ones were expert leagues, PPR, non-PPR, stuff like that. And it's all in the article, so you can see it. And I was kind of shocked, but not shocked. I was shocked in that the data was just so overwhelming to meet what I thought about quarterback value. And it's easier for people to get blinded by total points, right? And of course, we're talking about start 1 quarterback leagues, but I even employ the strategy in my start 2 or super flex leagues. But it's not about points; it's about the differential. And the points that the number 1 quarterback scores versus the 15th to 18th quarterback. You look at it and you go, I won without my quarterback. I won despite having a quarterback. in most matchups, you could subtract out your quarterback points and you still won the majority of your matchups. So that's when I said, you know what? There's so much more attrition at running back and wide receiver and tight end. Focus on those because you're going to need more lottery tickets, basically, right? And quarterbacks, they're a dime a dozen after you get through the top few, and it really just doesn't make that much of a difference.
Definitely, man. I've had some bad luck with quarterbacks in fantasy football over the years, and it's really hard though because if you're not, for me, I'm terrible. I probably had Carson Wentz, I think, in 2018 or 2019, and other guys like with a certain other NFC team that tends to have some bad luck. We know who they are in the Dallas Cowboys, but I'm excited for fantasy this year. But I think people belong on the hype. It's like some guys like Lamar Jackson. Those are good guys for fantasy. But the problem is with guys like him, I think, is that he'll have some good weeks. And then, this is the NFL, Steve. People are going to figure you out. But I'm happy I just didn't get an 8th place this year. So hopefully next year I can get into 1st place in fantasy football and not embarrass myself. But got to ask you, though, if you've been in this for a while, you talk about being humble and remembering the beginnings. If somebody out there that wants to be in the sports media industry, if you had like a piece of advice to give to this person that's interested in working in the sports media world, what would that be?
Don't do it for the money. I mean, that's the first and foremost. But now that's also part of the problem with why there are a lot of sites that don't pay is because people are willing to do it for free because they love it, right? But if you're going to get into it because you have a passion for it, right? Not because you want to just try and get rich and be the next Colin Cowherd or anything like that. And then what I'll say is just be tenacious, right? Be willing to dig and make the calls and the emails if you're trying to host a podcast and you want to get somebody on. Don't be afraid to ask. You never make a shot that you don't shoot. So I'll tell you, as an example, when we first started our podcast, I wanted to have Tony Dungy on my show, or I wanted to have Herm Edwards or something like that. And I had no idea how to do it. But guess what? I just started looking and making contacts. And I actually had both of those guys on our podcast when we first started. And that wouldn't have happened if I just would have been, I'm interested, right? You got to be committed to trying to do what you can to make yourself successful, but then also be true to yourself. And like I said, you've got to be a caring individual, show that you've got compassion and sympathy and empathy for other people. But just be true to yourself and do it so that you can say from afar, when you look at what you've done, that you're proud of it, right? Don't be an ass. I said that earlier. There are people that do try and they've made a name for themselves by being that, Howard Stern type, personality. For me, that's not me. I'd rather my work stand on its own instead of being all about personality.
Definitely, without a doubt, man. I'm not going to be. That's being humble. Like I always tell you, don't be afraid to shoot your shot. And it's like we think, and this is the problem thing some people have because they're afraid. Like they look at these people like idols, but it's like just like you're going back to the beginning of the Steve. These are people just like us. They have emotions, they have feelings, and they go through stuff. People go through divorce just because like they're this radio personality or they're this football player or sports player. It doesn't mean that they aren't a normal human being. Like there's a lot of people I shoot my shot to, and folks, I'll be honest, most of them said no. But that's the beauty part. The no's don't piss me off anymore. They really don't. I used to be like, you move on. There was one I was so close to getting. It's like, okay, you move on. That's where it kind of keeps you humble. And one's like Carson. I had the honor and privilege to talk to Carson and many other people because I wasn't afraid to shoot my shot. I think if you really want to talk, like you're talking about, those people you talk to, that's awesome. It's like you don't know. Have an approach when you email them that they're going to say yes. But if they say no, you move on. Because if you got 5 out of 200, those 5 interviews, I think, are going to be the best ones you have. And I just wish more people wouldn't be afraid to shoot their shot. Because who knows at this point who you could really have on an interview? I didn't know, like, people like yourself and others. I didn't know if you were going to respond. But if you didn't, that's okay. And if so, awesome. We can have an interview and kind of talk behind the scenes. But I think that's where a lot of people shooting your shot, I think, is the biggest thing in this industry.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. So it's like I say this all the time in my management and sales background. Look, you can't get a yes if you don't ask, right? And as an example, in sales, if you are successful 3 out of 10 times, that means you failed 70% of the time, right? And a lot of people would be down on themselves. In baseball, if you are successful 3 out of 10 times, you're a Hall of Famer at the plate, right? That's a 300 batting average. So you just have to try and put a different spin on how you look at it and not let certain things get you down. And you can't dwell on it. Yeah, you can try to learn from it, but don't dwell on it. Learn from anything that's become a challenge and find a way to get past it for the next one. I'll tell you one of my biggest disappointments, but I didn't let it define me. I actually had gotten to Wade Phillips. Wade Phillips was going to be on our show. And then guess what happened? He got hired. He got hired to be a coach again, and then it fell through because of that. But oh well, you know what? Someday I'll talk to Wade again, hopefully, and we'll get him on the show. But I could have sat there and and what was me, and we didn't do this, and no, you just move on and you do what you can. And like I said, you put out content that you're proud of, you'll be okay. Things will take care of itself.
Without a doubt, and I can't tell you enough. There was one person that I was so close to getting. They are our starting player for the Cleveland Browns, and I was so close, that close. But I was like, you know what? You can't really get mad. There's so many people that have reached out to it. Yeah. No, even guys like potentially like other ones I won't say just in case that we get in the future. But you really don't know. I think that's the issue here is like people are afraid to reach out. Steven, I don't understand that. And it's like, why are people afraid of rejection? That's just
people
industry.
don't like rejection. Yeah, people don't like rejection, but you're going to get a lot of rejection in life. So the ones that succeed are the ones that take. Look, just the more shots you take, the better chance you got of something going in.
Definitely, without a doubt, man. But speaking of shots that teams don't take, the Jacksonville Jaguars draft Trevor Lawrence. This wouldn't be a surprise. Right after he got drafted, they somehow had a jersey already with his name on it. That shouldn't be a shocker, but. See, we've seen this repetition. Like you've either been around kids where they do the same thing over and over, expecting a different result.
Yes, that's one of my favorite things. Definition of insanity.
That's the Jaguars' ownership here. As much as I love Trevor Lawrence and what he did in college, this is the Jaguars' organization. See, you remember Saxonville, they were 10 minutes away from beating Tom Brady to go to the Super Bowl in that offseason. It implodes. But my question to you is, if Trevor Lawrence fails, would it be his fault, or is the organization going to get in the way of his potential success with the new head coach at Urban Meyer?
So you've got Urban Meyer there. We have to see how he transitions to the NFL, right? So there's a bunch of variables that you just don't know how they're going to play out. Everybody thought Chip Kelly was the second coming, right? Chip Kelly was a complete and utter failure, basically, at the NFL level. And then you've got other college guys that have come in, they've done well, and vice versa. So you know what? At the quarterback position, talent matters, but coaching matters just as much. And I think that gets overlooked. And that's why your good teams remain good. That's why Cleveland struggled for so long, for so many years, right? The culture wasn't the way that it needed to be. The coaching staff had turnover in it. And I say that my wife's a Cleveland Browns fan. So I understand the despair that's there. And that's why you hear teams talk about wanting to change the culture and stuff like that. And it's true. I mean, it's just easier to thrive and learn in something like that. So, no one's ever a given. I don't care who it is. I mean, we go back, look, Jamarcus Russell was supposed to be great, right? Didn't happen. Ryan Leaf was supposed to be great. Didn't happen. It wasn't because the talent wasn't there. What was the reason? Was it something inside? Did it just not click at the next level? Was it the coaching aspect? I don't know that answer. I'll say this. Lawrence has all the tools. It's a fresh start in Jacksonville. There is nowhere to go but up. I doubt. I mean, they were 1-15 last year, right? So I guess they could go down. But there is nowhere to go but up. And the other thing to think about is, look, we forget these guys, we call them guys, but they are kids in a sense. They're very young adults that don't have a lot of worldly experience. They get thrown all this money, all this pressure, and they've got to carry it on their shoulders. And that, I think, is a huge part of what makes and breaks a lot of players. He seems to have a good family construct around him, newly married. That hopefully will help to keep him settled a little bit so he's not out, partying and not studying the playbook like he should be and doing the things that he needs to do. But only time will tell. I don't like to prognosticate on what I think because there are a lot more misses than hits in the NFL. NFL, not for long, average career is 3.6 years or something like that. People tend to forget that because they look at the Aaron Rodgers and the Tom Brady's and the guys that had and the Frank Gores that have really long careers. That's not normal. Larry Fitzgerald's, et cetera. So we'll see. I think that he'll be okay. I don't know if he's going to be a savior, but the coaching staff is going to have to be a major part of that. And it's not just for the quarterback. It's for everything else and getting all the parts to work together. It's the greatest team sport in all of pro sports, but we always boil it down to just a quarterback, but it truly is a team sport. So we'll see.
Definitely, without a doubt, man. There's definitely a lot more pressure nowadays because you talk about going back to the Aaron Rodgers. He was sitting behind Brett Favre for many years. Quarterbacks nowadays are getting better faster, and I think Jaguars here is just you have an owner. If he really had the option, they would play all their games in London. I've never seen him in a press conference. I understand they got Marvin Jones, you got your second-year running back undrafted in 2020, James Robinson, but again, you dress in pieces on defense. But it's like the Jaguars. It got so bad 6 years ago. The NFLPA was warning against players to sign with them in free agency. Of course, because of Tom Coughlin now gone. I believe in Trevor Lawrence, but based on the track record of the Jaguars with other quarterbacks and players they've had, I'm a little bit hesitant just because who they select. Because again, you can have the greatest players like on offense, defense, special teams, and maybe Urban Meyer's get coached again because of health issues. But it all falls back in the organization. How is the organization handling success? You talk about being humble in the beginning of the sports industry. The Jaguars were not humble in 2017. But now they're going to have to be humble this year. If they don't address that offensive line, or he can't stay healthy, I'm not too sure. I'm high on him, but who really knows? Because it's the Jaguars.
Well, you know what? The year Baker Mayfield got drafted, you probably heard a lot of people saying exactly what you just said about Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. But there was nothing that was guaranteed. It looks like it's going in the right direction for the Browns, and who knows, the same thing could happen. And you can go worst to first pretty quickly in the NFL, just as you can go from first to worst quickly. Windows shut quickly, but you can also open them because, like I said, it's a big team sport. A lot of different breaks happen. It's really a small inches game. Actually, it's one of the things I remember that Tony Dungy said on our show was, and this was back when the Jaguars were bad again. He said the difference between the Jaguars and the Patriots was not as big as what people realize. It really comes down to those small things, the coaching, the breaks in the game, and things like that.
But definitely without a doubt. But again, folks, before we go into do on every single show, let's go to this morning's final thoughts. Ryan, Steve, yet again, it's always much appreciated when people take time out of their busy schedule. But do you have any final shout outs or final thoughts or things that you're working on currently?
No, all I'll say is, you know what, we'll keep our fingers crossed for this year's Flex League. Last year we had it virtual. It'll probably wind up being virtual again this year, but maybe I can get a repeat in there at some point. And follow me on Twitter at Steve Gallo NFL, and wish me luck over the next 2 weeks because I got about 7 yards of gravel that I have to shovel for a project I'm working on at my house.
Definitely without a doubt, man. Good luck with that. But again, folks, that one dude 2020 here. It's always honor and pleasure for anybody that wants to work in the sports industry. Always be humble, and if somebody says, cool interview, glad you're following your dreams, Cinder, that's really what it's all about here. But that one, dude, 2020, right on the MI6 Sports Network. See you all later, Steve. Thank you so much for coming on, my man. Let's stay in touch.
No problem. Take care. Have a good season.
Too.
What is up, y'all?
Corn, I don't know, man, if I have seen someone, and I think I said this a while back when he first came on the network, was I don't know if I've seen someone with the drive and passion to make it in the industry like I've seen with you. And
that's my boy, that dude 2020. I like the name.
The drive and fire and passion in some people is not quite there for this type of an industry because it's cutthroat. It's very, up and down roller coaster of emotion. Also, I don't know if I've seen a person, though, who probably has been so appreciative of a chance that they were given. Corn, like I've said, though, man, is, again, you're one of the new guys on this network. And again, I know that you're very appreciative, though, of me kind of giving you the shot here. But
how did you get blocked by LeBron James on Twitter?
don't know if I've seen so much drive and energy and passion from someone maybe other than me for this industry. And
John is truly a rising star in this industry. He knows his stuff. He's not afraid to go at people, and he's a guy that you want to go to bat for. And I'm so thankful that he's part of our network.